Archbishop, this little something that we want to present you with. If I can ask Ron Konopowski, another man who needs no introduction. Ron Konopowski, please come up here. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron Konopowski.
Thank you all. Thank you again for coming to join this great celebration. My only regret is I didn't have a chance to speak with you individually, but it was impossible to do so. Anyway, thank you, Tony. There's a couple of things I need to interject. It's kind of off again, but Tony Hall has been our MC for many, many years. I can't remember how many. Today is his wife's birthday. His family was having a huge celebration in Marin for her birthday. He left the celebration to come here to be our MC. Another postscript. Tony gave a great recitation of the history of United for Life, and I came to this organization later on. I missed that part of the history, in fact. But there's another chapter to the history. United for Life was kind of on its last legs. And there was a lady in San Francisco named B. Smalley. She was one of our great heroes. And she managed to nurture United for Life through those dark times and kept it alive. And so it still goes on. Then there was another lady who gave United for Life a very generous bequest from her estate, Claire Lynch. And so that was a new chapter in United for Life. We've gone through some challenges, as most organizations do, I'm sure. But anyway, with that, I need to get down to business. And so my main purpose here is to award our beloved Archbishop. I say repeatedly, he's the most pro-life bishop in the United States. And he just doesn't talk the talk. He walks the walk. He's gone to great lengths and he exposed himself to all sorts of criticism. But he doesn't back down. His courage is amazing. Recently, you may know, but he, together with Bishop Barber in Oakland, wrote a fantastic letter on the transgender agenda, which I won't go into details, but the reason I bring that up is that there was a front page article in the San Francisco Chronicle which accused the Archbishop of many things, and those things are why we are honoring him tonight. And without further ado, I want to read to you the certificate of award that we're giving to our beloved Archbishop. At this 50th anniversary banquet of the United for Life of Northern California, we celebrate the Most Reverend Salvatore J. Cordileone, Archbishop of San Francisco, for defending the dignity of every human life from conception to natural death. Thank you.
was going to get my promise. Mary Ann Schwab. What a hero to all of us. Great recognition and review for her heroic life. So I wanted to begin by, we're all mourning her passing. So if I can take just 1 minute of silence in memory of Mary Ann, thanksgiving to God for who she was and what she did. May she rest in peace. I thank you for this recognition, but I see it really as a recognition of all of you and all that you are doing to defend the sanctity of life. We would not be here if you were not doing that. So, as the old saying goes, we're all in this together. We really are. It's a team effort. Everyone has to do their part, the contribution they can make. I personally am very encouraged by your willingness to take a stand and speak on this issue of the utmost importance. This is the intrinsic safety of human life, human dignity, and especially in these times. So we're very happy about that God's decision after almost 50 years. Rome was finally overturned, but as we know, especially here in California and other states, but no more than here in California, it's presenting new and greater challenges. Who cannot be horrified at the idea of the call to make California an abortion sanctuary state? The killing of children in the womb, a sanctuary for that? Sanctuary is supposed to be about protection, not killing, right? This is, it's really, I don't want to be rhetorical. I mean this literally, that this is a sanctuary for Satan, because the sacrifice of children is when the ancient Israelites deviated from the covenant God made with them. They went over to the pagan practices. They sacrificed their children. It's very clear. They sacrificed them to Moloch. We see this all throughout the scriptures. Those of you who share holy orders with me or religious, read in that office of readings. Remember the reading yesterday from the prophet Autumn? Spoke about how they were eating the flesh of their sons and daughters. So this is something that is demons, of course, in the Old Testament and biblical mentality, the same, or false gods, same thing as demons. So our state wants to be a sanctuary for Satan. On a happy occasion, we're here to celebrate the 50th anniversary of United for Life. I'm so impressed when I look out at you all and see the great diversity of us united for life and beyond. It is a united effort, this great diversity of races and ethnicities, of expressions of our common faith in Christ, and of age as well. Of course, those of us involved know that the pro-life movement is a young movement. The young people are the ones who are leading the charge of pro-life. They're beginning to realize what has happened to their generation. About a third of them are not here. These are the ones who survived this Holocaust. Some of us are older though, and I see a number of you are like my age or older, so we can remember 50 years ago this year, almost now 51. I remember it very well. I remember being horrified by it. I couldn't understand how people could think that this was a good thing. I remember, like, classmates in high school thinking that this was an advanced sport. I could not understand it. I could not understand how people could not recognize how serious this is. And I've noticed ever since then this campaign to change people's attitudes on the issue. And they always begin by changing the language. You know, if they can change the language, when people adopt that language, they change the way they think, and then they can begin to succeed. So the language is a way of deflecting attention away from what the issue is really about. And so you're all familiar with the rhetoric about being supposedly pro-choice. This language of pro-choice, we cannot capitulate that. So many do, who are ardently pro-life, capitulate to using that term pro-choice. We are all pro-choice in the sense that we all believe that people have the right to make choices for their life. I mean, this is a foundational principle of our country, right? But we also believe that that right has to be limited so you do not deprive others of their rights. So I noticed how the media follows this script of its pro-choice and anti-abortion. How much sense does this make? If there's an issue, and you have some people who are pro and some people who are anti, the word on the right side of the hyphen has to be the same word. Otherwise, you're talking about two different things. This mentality is so ingrained. I remember a few years ago when Archbishop Joseph Hammond, the Diocese of Kansas City, Archdiocese of Kansas City, Kansas, he was the chairman at the time of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops Committee for Pro-Life Activities. So a New York Times reporter was there and wrote up an article about it. And because he made some kind of I forgot what the issue was, some strong statement. And the article referred to him as the chairman of the U.S. Bishops' Anti-Abortion Committee. They could not even cite the real name of the committee, so ingrained is this mentality. We hear about the right to privacy. Of course, this is not in the Constitution, in those so-called penumbra of the Constitution. And what about the right to life anyway, even if there is a right to privacy here? We hear this rhetoric about a woman has a right to her body, trying to deflect attention away from the fact that there's another body inside this body. What about the right of that body, the human being who inhabits that body? Or my body, my choice? Somehow, I might be going out on a limb with some of you, but somehow that didn't apply when it came to vaccine mandates. Right? You cannot say my body. In fact, our president said when there were, of course, these mandates, he said literally, word for word, there is no freedom, there is no choice. Okay? So you're trying to tell me that if I don't get that vaccine and I get infected, there's a very minuscule chance that I might infect someone with the virus if I have it and I don't know it, and that person will die. Oh, those chances are very minimal. But when it comes to abortion, it's absolutely certain somebody's going to die. Okay, so this cognitive dissonance. Then they speak about equality for women, which is another way of confusing equality for sameness. This is something that also has always perplexed me. Do we really respect women when they have to be doing everything that a man does to be equal to a man? Isn't it setting up the male as the paradigm for equality?
Why does she have to kill what makes her uniquely feminine in order to be equal to a man? How is that respecting women? Why are we not amazed, reduced to silence at the gift God gave to women to bring a new life into the world? Inside of her womb is a new life with an immortal soul. Our society used to organize ourselves around that. For the good of the child, the good of the mother, the blessing of her fertility is a blessing from God. It's not an inconvenience or a switch to be turned on and off. What a blessing from God that is. And this kind of goes along with an equal demise of true manhood. You know, that the man has this role of mediating his children's relationship with God. There's something uniquely priestly about the man in the home. So God gave an awesome gift to each one, to the man and to the woman. They're equally awesome, and it's a beautiful thing when they come together in complementarity to image God, who is a life-giving communion of persons. That's how He created us to be. That's how we reflect His image and likeness. A life-giving community of persons. The man and the woman come together in comprehensive union, conjugal union, that gives forth new life. They somehow pivoted from this whole pro-choice and right to privacy rhetoric to calling that reproductive health.
No kidding.
It's another cognitive dissonance. It's about keeping women from reproducing. How can you call it reproductive health? Reproductive health is making sure she's healthy in order to reproduce, right? And now it's being celebrated as an absolute good. This is another digression I've noticed over the decades, as old as I am now. It was originally, to kind of softly introduce it in, tolerated as a necessary evil. Way back then, people who were in favor of it being legal and available, they would at least say, well, you know, it's not really a good thing, but sometimes it's the best choice of all bad choices. Of course, that's not true because somebody ends up dying, but at least they looked at it that way. Then it became the right to choose, then it became health care, and now it is celebrated as a positive good. How can this be celebrated as a, how can anyone, even if someone is misled to think that it can be legitimate in some circumstances, how can anyone think that it's a positive good? We hear all kinds of other examples of this sort of rhetoric. You can't legislate morality. Actually, we do that all the time. Any law, any felony, it's a moral issue, right? You can't murder somebody. You can't set fire to their home if they upset you. You can't steal their car. You can't break into their house and burglarize their home. These are all moral issues, and they're illegal. So, actually, we do legislate morality. And of course, there's that really big one. You cannot impose your religion on everyone else. Well, if that's the case, if this is imposing religion, then we'd have to do with all those other laws I just mentioned. Stealing would have to be off the books, right? Because religion says stealing is wrong. You know, arson, off the books. Religion says arson is wrong, right? You look at the Ten Commandments. I don't know if the Lutherans have the same listing of the Ten Commandments, the Catholics, but the first three have to do with the relation to God. This is part of revealed truth. The other seven have to do with relationship to each other. Things we can figure out from reason alone, right? And we should respect our parents. We should not steal from people. We should not kill innocent people. These things, for reason alone, we can understand. And without that, there could be no good governance in any society. So we're not legislating our religion or imposing our religion on everyone else. Our religious faith gives us deeper insights and greater clarity into these natural truths, yes. But If you say you can't oppose your religion, it's not a matter of religious belief. First of all, it's a matter of scientific fact. It's a fact. It's human life. There's no question. That's a human life, right? And they say they believe in science, but somehow they conveniently don't when it's inconvenient for them. So that's a fact. And if you believe that innocent people should not be killed, it can lead you to no other conclusion. We hear a lot about separation of church and state, which of course is not in the Constitution, as I'm sure you all know. But the right to life is a foundational principle of our country. As you know, that's in the Constitution, in the Declaration of Independence, the foundational document from which was drafted our Constitution. No man shall be deprived of the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Man, of course, we understand, does not mean simply an adult male, but all members of the human race. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There's a logical sequence here, right? Life is the foundational one. If there's no right to life, how can there be a right to anything else? All rights are built on that foundation, the right to life. So you cannot deprive someone of their right, of their right to life for the sake of your right to liberty, right? I want to be free to do whatever I want to do. There's this logical order, foundational in this life. So my right to liberty has to be limited if it's going to deprive someone else of the right to life. My right to the pursuit of happiness has to be limited if it's going to deprive someone else of their right to liberty. So there's this kind of logical sequence. And their tactics are very interesting. So I had fun with this as we were sitting down to dinner, and my dear friend and brother Walter Hoy, when you're being introduced, saying that, I don't know if I had yet become the Bishop of Oakland, actually. I think I just announced, the appointment was announced when I went to visit, but I had met you before. That was in March. I met you in January at the dinner after the Walk for Life. When this man, this is the kind of pro-life hero we have here. I do not know any other example of a city council that passed an ordinance to target someone who is trying to give women information going into abortion clinics. The city of Oakland passed an ordinance because Walter was praying in front of the abortion clinics and he was giving literature to the women, giving them accurate information about what this is about. They passed an ordinance forbidding anyone to come within 8 feet of a woman going into an abortion clinic. Now, I don't think I mentioned it to you. I mentioned it to somebody along the way, maybe Dolores or somebody. If we had known each other better then, maybe I could have talked to you correctly. What I would have done, Walter, is, and I said this to somebody, get something kind of like a hula hoop, an 8-foot radius around you, attach your waist with little sticks and wheels on the bottom, okay? So make sure you're 8 feet away, get a stick with a little clip at the end and hand them the literature. To show how ridiculous. They targeted this man and put him in jail for trying to give women information and save them from his torment. Thank you, Walter. So what is this about, really? It's not really about choice. It's not about imposing religion. Sadly, abortion in our country has become an industry. And this is well documented too. I'm sure many of you, as I, have read another awesome conversion story and become pro-life hero, Dr. Burton Nathan's book on aborting America. And he explained about the strategy to liberalize the abortion laws, part of which was changing the language. They had to identify a visible enemy. So they did target the Catholic Church as a visible word. We were easily targetable. And he was a founding member of the original NARO. The original NARO after they succeeded, it's now the National Abortion and Reproductive Rights Action Week. But he said the real motivation was profit. They saw a lot of money was to be made in abortions. And that's still the case. I'm sure many of you, all of you, I'm sure, have heard testimonies of Abby Johnson, Patricia Sandoval, and others who have come out of the Planned Parenthood abortion industry world. It's all about sales. They don't want women to have information. They tell them lies. They told them, Patricia, one talk I heard say, they told them, don't put pictures of little children in your workspace. It might dissuade women from getting an abortion. They're lying to you. That's someone, I'm sure you know examples as I do. A woman, she's now a pro-life hero, but she went through her own abortion experience when she was in the clinic and changed her mind. She didn't want to go through with it. But they're very vulnerable, right? They're susceptible to pressure, and she was told it's just a bunch of cells. They know that if women are given real choice, they will choose life. We are most pro-life when we give women that opportunity. And thank you, all of you who do what you can to support pro-life crisis pregnancy clinics. Thank you, Dolores, and all your supporters for the Bella Clinic. This is exactly what we need to be doing to show that we're truly pro-life. And to show the lives that we say all we care about is the baby in the womb, we don't care about the woman. We're the only ones who care about the woman. Where are they afterwards? And she's grieving, she's in anxiety, and she doesn't know where to turn. In fact, she can't talk to anyone about it. She's not supposed to feel guilty about it. Where does she go for healing? She goes to the church. The ones who understood how wrong this decision was. We are the ones who take her in and help her to heal. We are the ones who are supporting these crisis pregnancy clinics that are being so defamed and persecuted. And we know from their experience that when a woman is given information about what's going on within her, about fetal development, with the abortion procedure involved, most especially that 3D sonogram, when she's given information about her full range of choices, there's adoption, whatever form of adoption that might make. She might want to raise the child herself, but she needs support in doing that. She might need a place to stay. She might need some job training, taught how to fill out a resume, do a job, get so she can get back on her feet. There's also the old-fashioned solution of marriage for those now sad to say human around to want to commit to her and be the father to the child. There's all these ranges of choices, right? And we know when she's given that information and the support to make one of those other choices, 95% of the time happens what she asks for. Right? So that's why I like to say, those of you who are supporting these crisis pregnancy clinics, actually you're the ones who are pro-choice. Because you're giving her the help she needs to exercise any number of choices except for one. The other side, all they care about is that she makes one choice. And one choice is no choice. You have to have at least two options to make a choice, right? They don't want her to have any other choice. So they're the ones who are actually anti-choice. We're the ones who are pro-choice. And that's the irony. Those of us in pastoral ministry, I'm sure my fellow priests here experience this as I have. Women who say they're filled with anxiety, right? I didn't want to go through with it, but I felt like I had no choice. How can that be if we're supposed to be a pro-choice society? How could you say, I felt like I had no choice? So this is something that's very sinister, even diabolical. The way we instrumentalize human beings, the most innocent, for the sake of profit and power. In the end, as I was alluding to before, this is as far as a kid can get from affirming the equality of women. It is really the greatest betrayal of the true dignity of women. Again, God gave this woman this awesome gift. I'm so heartbroken, devastated how men don't appreciate this. We men should be down on our knees in awe at this gift that God gave to women. We need to respect that and surround her with love and care and tenderness and support for this awesome gift that God gave them. So why don't our laws require the father of the child to take responsibility? Especially now that we have scientific means to verify paternity of the child. It's all put on her shoulders, isn't it? Sometimes I hear a man will say, I'll support you in whatever decision you make. Okay, women, obviously I'm not a woman. I don't know how you react to that, but I suspect your reaction is disappointment and fear. Because you can see through the phoniness of that response. What does that mean? I'll support you in whatever decision you make. Yeah, I won't get in the way if you want to give birth to the child. I won't get in the way if you want to abort it. I might even pay for it and drive you to the clinic. That's supporting her. Will he really support her in whatever decision she makes? What if her decision is, hey, you know what? You're the father of this child. This is as much your child as mine. So we're going to get married, and you're going to go to work, and you're going to support our family and take care of us. Is he willing to do that? That's important. Of course, on the other hand, there are men who are harmed by an abortion decision. There are men who want the child to be born and are willing to take responsibility for the child. But they're left out of the picture, right? It's like, butt out. This is my baby. Well, it's equally his baby, right? The man has no rights in the whole thing. So, how denigrating is this to men who are called to protect and provide and be a father and a husband? So, we need to authentically uphold the dignity of women. And the church has done that from the very beginning. Christians are the ones who upheld the dignity of women in the ancient world when that dignity was so disregarded, so violated. From the earliest times, we have venerated female saints and martyrs. In the early centuries, when there was this monastic movement, monks going out in the Egyptian desert to see God in solitude, there were communities of women as well, along with the men. Communities of women arose to take care of the poor and the sick. The church pioneered institutions of higher education for women, founded and run by women. And the highest ideal of discipleship is a woman, the mother of our Lord Jesus Christ. Above all, the church affirmed the dignity of women and civilized the pagan world through monogamous, lifelong marriage. This recognizes the true equal dignity of husband and wife and the complementary union that is the covenant of marriage. Ultimately, all these social ills we are facing comes down to the demise of the Christian sexual ethic. It's the integral connection between sex, marriage, and the bearing and rearing of children. Now, if you read that article Ron mentioned earlier in the Chronicle about Bishop Barnaby, you would think I'm saying this because I'm a firebrand, hard, right, conservative. Because I believe boys are boys and girls are girls. But I'm not saying because of that. We have 50 plus years of social science data. All this research, all these reports. Those of you my age and older who remember the famous Whitehan report, right? About the demise of the African American family fatherlessness, and he says if this spreads, it's going to be a disaster. Now it's all over. And ever since then, study after study has shown all these social ills we're facing is because of fatherlessness. Children are growing up without a father or an abusive father. And we hear so often about whatever the issue is, all of these various issues we're dealing with, whether it's gun violence, homelessness, incarceration. They want to get to the root of the problem. I wonder, do they really? If you get to the root of the problem, you're going to discover it's fatherlessness. The whole point of marriage is, well, as someone smarter than I and more studying these things said, when a baby is born, the mother is sure to be somewhere nearby. There's no guarantee the father's going to be nearby. Society needs a social mechanism that attaches fathers to the mother of the child he brings into the world with her and to the child. And that mechanism is marriage. So, we're suffering all of this social devastation because of this disintegration of sex, marriage, and the bearing and rearing of children. God created this beautiful gift of sexual union for babies and bonding. Again, it is His image. The covenant of marriage is the image of God. And it's a gift that belongs only within the relationship of marriage. All society, if it's going to be healthy and flourish, needs to be organized around that. Women need to be respected as bearers of life. Well, I'm also old enough to remember when there were traditional manners that did that, and that a woman would not easily give her affection to a man. He had to prove himself to be worthy of it. I find it so sad, again, this whole idea that the woman has to be just like the man. But I see a lot of imitations of men at their worst in terms of language, dress, manners. Okay, those of you who are younger are probably going to think I'm a weird old fogey when I say this. But I remember when I was in end of high school and first year of college, I had a job bussing tables in a diner. And on the weekends, I had the morning shift, breakfast shift. And I remember every Saturday morning, a retired Protestant minister and his wife would come in for breakfast. And I didn't know yet that God was calling me to be a priest. So I was beginning to get an inkling, but I thought my vocation was marriage. And retired, so that elderly, I remember how joyful they were. And I'd see them pull up, I could see through the picture windows, they pull up the parking lot and open the door for her. And then they walk into the restaurant, he'd open the door to come in. And they were holding hands and they were so joyful, gleeful. And I thought, when I get toward the end of my life, I want to be like that. How did they get there? Well, you know, when they were in college, they did not hook up. They were formed in a virtue that made them capable of that kind of happiness in their marriage. This is what images the Holy Trinity. So, what can we do? We have to promote a marriage culture, most especially by example, in lots of little ways as well as big ways. The way we dress, modesty in dress, modesty in our speech, avoiding all those dangers of pornography and hooking up and all those other things that corrupt us. And also, I would ask you, obviously, in bigger ways, to keep doing what you're doing in the defense of the sanctity of life in the womb. Life, marriage, and a healthy society all goes together. If they're separated, it all falls apart. Life, marriage, and a healthy society, it's a package deal. This will always involve some kind of suffering, at least ridicule and marginalization. Sometimes maybe even having the local ordinance targeted against you. But we're all going to face some kind of marginalization and ridicule, being ostracized. But we know what the truth is, and the truth cannot be hidden forever. And what did our Lord teach us when that happens? What are we supposed to do? Get angry and fight back? You gotta fight back in the Christian way, but you didn't quite say that. Get sad and go away. He said to rejoice. When we're persecuted and slandered unjustly for his sake, we are to rejoice. Think about that scene in the Acts of the Apostles. When they were persecuted, they were beaten, then released. What does Luke say in the Acts of the Apostles? They rejoiced for having suffered dishonor for the sake of the name. This is how we bear witness to the goodness of the gospel and the goodness of the gospel of life. And we see it's having an effect. As extreme as it's getting in some places, like here in California, I sense our country is becoming more pro-life. Now, the media will tell you about how, Americans are, they all still in favor of abortion. My sense is that most Americans are conflicted about the issue. Right? I don't think very many think all 9 months up to the day of birth. I don't think very many Americans really believe that's a good thing. The problem is they cannot imagine a world free of abortion. So they think it should be allowed under some circumstances. And the difference is how limited are those circumstances. Our challenge is to help them imagine a world free of abortion. That's where it starts, is just imagining that. Right? So they might say, oh, you're never going to do away with abortion. Are we ever going to have world peace? Do you think the world will ever be completely free of war? But we can imagine it, right? And we know it's good to work for it. And we keep working for it, despite how serious the situation is becoming, because we can imagine it. So people need to imagine a world without abortion, and how much better that world will be. Yes, it will involve some kind of suffering, as I mentioned, but we're in good company. All those who have advocated for justice in an unjust society have suffered persecution. Many of us are old enough to remember the civil rights movement and those who suffered and obviously were killed for defending civil rights. Sadly, there's much hatred and hostility in the world today, and it seems to be growing in our own country. But it is your purity, your goodness, affability, and compassion that will win them over. So be witnesses to the truth, and thank you for being witnesses to the truth.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those reverends waiting for what to do, Archbishop of San Francisco, come to church. Now you know why you're here to develop peace. Archbishop, thank you so much. Ron, would you like to come up and wrap up with a few words? Thank you, Paul.